Hello and welcome to Learning Music with Pat. On the last segment, I showed you one of my larger fifes. It actually was called a walking stick flute. So this week I'm going to show you the largest fife that I have that's also called a walking stick flute. And this is it. I'm going to just hold it up and then I'm going to twist it to one side. I don't think we can even get the whole thing in one shot. It's made out of bamboo. It's very tall. It's about 4 feet tall. And the only instruments that would be that big would be some of the straight bass recorders that are very large as well. But this is quite tall, and we're talking about 4 feet. We were looking at it this morning, made out of bamboo. Now, I'm going to show it to you from the side, and I'm going to have to move it from side to side. But see, you can see the whole thing there, can't you? This is the mouthpiece, which I don't think we'll be able to get. Oh, you did get it. That's great. It's a perfectly round hole. And then down this way, you have all of the tone holes. Now, the tone holes are quite distant from each other. So when I play it, I don't play it very often, but I used to. Here are the finger stretches. And you can see how long you have to stretch. This finger particularly, it has to stretch very long. And with these instruments, you know, you have to cover the holes completely if you're going to get a tone. And it's very tempting when you're holding something and the finger stretches are this great that you're going to try to twist your hand or do something to make it more comfortable, because it is uncomfortable stretching your hand that much, especially if you have arthritis or a previous injury or something like that, because you've really got to stretch it. And this part, I'm going to show you this hole, the only hole that's in the back, this hole right here. This is where the music comes out. All of this is decorative. All of this is decorative. And here's your mouthpieces right here. This part is also decorative. Now I want to show you something else about this, and I'm not sure that you'll be able to pick it up. There is a compass on one end. You can see its reflection right there. There's a compass. This is meant to be taken hiking. You can play it. It's a walking stick flute, but you would never want to put your full weight on it, because if you put your full weight on it, then you probably would break it, because it's all clear. It's a tube, basically. And bamboo just isn't that strong. I can see ridges in it. I'm not sure that you'd ever be able to pick it up, but I can see ridges on it. Every so often, another ridge. It's like it's pieces of bamboo that have been joined together with one hole in the back, toward the back, that lets the air come out, and the rest, as I said, is decorative, but you can't take it off. On the last segment, I showed you an instrument that's a fife that you could take parts of it off to make it smaller for playing. There's no way you can do it. This is what it is, and it's going to stay that way. Now, I want to mention that this is the second one that I had. I had one before this, and it was bamboo, and there was a mistake in the order somehow. So in order to make up to me whatever the mistake was, I don't remember what it was, they sent me a second one. This is the second one, and I'm really glad to have it, because bamboo is a little sensitive. It is easy to split, and a lot of the smaller bamboo instruments I have from the Caribbean, I don't play them very much, because after a certain amount of play, they will start to split. The bamboo will split, and the reason is, and the Indian flutes are like this too, and the reason is that it's not very thick. They make it out of bamboo that's not very thick, and so it doesn't take much. The warmth of the air that you put into it when you're playing, heating it up, and whatever the air is outside of the instrument, after a while it'll just start to split. Once an instrument starts to split, then basically it's not good to play it because that split is going to increase. Well, with the first one I had like this, the whole thing split all the way down, and it was like it was a spring. All of a sudden, it opened up, and I had a gap, I'm not kidding, about this wide, and the instrument wouldn't close. It was like a hole, like somebody cut a line in the instrument all the way down that was that wide, and there's just nothing I could do with it. There was no repairing it. I know that there are some people who specialize in repairing wooden instruments if they split or something happens to them, but I imagine it's very expensive, and the instruments that I have, it would be more expensive to repair them than it would be to replace them. But a lot of the instruments I have are not replaceable either. They're one-time item that would not be repeated. So this is it, made out of bamboo. It's a beautiful instrument to see. It does play. It plays pretty well. I don't play it much because of the fact that it is bamboo, and I think it, it might be getting ready to split a little bit. But it's a nice, nice instrument. And for novelty, I have brought it into various places to play it. And if you think that the other one was big, well, you should try playing this. Sticking it out on one side, mouthpiece right here, so it's on one side, and you've got it like this, and it really sticks out considerably. It's a very, very long instrument. Gives a nice tone. It's a nice instrument, it really is. It cost me quite a bit of money. I think after a while, though, they stopped making them. There's no way that this would ever be replaced. There's a little rubber stand on this so that when you put it down, it's more stable. The other one had a little metal piece on the end of it. This is like a rubber piece that you would have like on a piece of furniture, and you see when I put it down on the floor where it is now, it's up to about the top of my head. So to play it, I mean, if I were to play it, if it had a fipple mouthpiece and I were to play it like this, and you can see it would be a problem because it's just plain so long. So I love these instruments, I have a group of them, and I like to bring in unusual ones. And when I get a chance to do it, I can't always do it, but when I get a chance to do it, I bring these instruments in. I never leave these instruments alone. If I'm leaving my apartment, they're locked up. I keep them in an even room temperature. You've got to realize that instruments actually do respond to temperature. And the worst thing you can do for them is get them in an environment that's too hot or too cold. Even the digitized instruments, like digitized keyboards, they respond to temperature. Never leave an instrument in the attic because you're not going to be using it, so you put it in the attic. The intense heat and intense heat in summer, intense cold in winter can practically destroy it. It needs even warm temperature. If you have a piano, it's best, and I know sometimes you can't do this, but if you have a piano, it's always best to put the piano against an inside wall in your house, not an outside wall, because if you get it in an outside wall, it's going to pick up some of the air and the temperature of the air on the outside. You need to keep it as even as you can. And never leave it in a car, because it gets too warm and too cold in the car, it can damage it. The other one, I think it was inherent. When they put it together, there was a defect in the wood, and it just split open, because I've never left my instruments in a hot car or in an attic. They've always been in normal room temperature, and that's the way I've always kept all of them. And this is the reason, one of the reasons I think that this instrument has taken on and stood the test of time, because it's healthy. It's a good instrument, it's healthy. So there it is, my second and the last fife I'm going to bring in for a while. And when I put it down, it really goes beyond the table. I just don't want it to tip. But we'll be all set with it like that. Now, I brought in another piece of music that I wrote, and I wanted, in the last segment we dealt with the dotted eighths and sixteenths and the triplets. Now, what I did here is that this is also a march. It's a different march than what I had last time, but it's going to be a lot easier to read, probably a lot more along the lines that you're used to reading. We start off, I will play it in a minute. We start off with 4/4 time and the treble clef. So you know most of the instruments that are woodwinds are going to be all treble clef. So it's not going to be unusual to see this. The bass recorders sometimes play in a bass clef. I've seen fingering charts for treble and bass for bass recorders, so you would have maybe that exception to the rule, but almost all of the other woodwinds will always be treble clef. 4/4 time, quite traditional. And this is your half rest. A half rest, it pops up from the third line, and that third line has just that little squarish looking thing. That's a 2-beat rest. If it were a 4-beat rest instead of a 2-beat rest, it would hang down from the fourth line and hang down in this direction. So it pops up from the third, and that is the second, the 2-beat rest. If it went down from the top of the fourth, then that would be a 4-beat rest. So you've got 1, 2, and this is an eighth note rest. So you count it 1, 2, 3, and 4 end. And then you have quarter notes, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3. This is a half note, it's 2 beats, and this is an eighth note, 1, 2, 3, and 4 n. This is the way that you count eighth notes, 3, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 n. And so you get 1, 2, 3, and 4 n, and then you take the quarter notes, 1, 2, 3, 4, then 1, 2, 3, and 4 n. Now you have a hold from that half note, you have that hold to that eighth note, and it holds as if it was one tone, because you're not tonguing it. When you hold something, you don't tongue it. 1, 2, 3, and 4 n. You know, if I tongued it, it would be it would still be 3 and 4 n, but you hold it and it looks like that becomes a part of that note, so it becomes like a longer note. You'll notice that I do that throughout the piece. I think it makes it just a little nicer. I don't have to do that, but it would sound differently if I didn't. So this piece is basically eighth notes, quarter notes occasionally, and half notes. That's basically what it is, but it's still a march. So I'm going to play that, and you're going to find, I'm not going to play it very high, very fast, and we'll go through it again. I'll dissect it for you, but this is the way it sounds, and it is a march. Now here again, if I were actually playing it in a band, I probably would repeat it, but because it's short. But I write them short because I don't have to keep repeating over and over again what I want to teach you. So, but I do want to play it once again, and I'll play it a little faster. Once you practice it slow to begin with, and then after you practice it slow and get real familiar with the fingerings and how they are and how it works and what it sounds like, then you can increase it, and when you increase the speed, it sounds more like a march. But I also want to say that not all marches are fast, that you do have slower marches as well. That's the whole bunch right there. Now, when I write songs, I make them, what I think is simple, so I can teach you. But as you look at the skill sets you have to have in order to play this song, you have to be able to tongue every note. Tonguing is extremely important. You can't play without tonguing. There's no decisiveness. There's no nothing that really would spark your interest in it. And the other thing, you've got to know how to figure the notes. You've got to be able to tongue. You've got to know when to slur and when to stop slurring. Some people have the idea that they'll slur practically every note, and that's just not good, because then it's just mushy. It just doesn't work very well. You have to know what the accidentals are. So let's go through this, and I'll show you in more detail. This E, F, F sharp, how do you finger that F sharp? Well, my way of doing it would be, here is the E, here's the F sharp, let me try that again, E, F. Now, in a Baroque instrument, you put this finger down for the F, and this is a little bit difficult. It's a little bit tricky. E, F, F sharp, like this. And then you're ready to hit your G. So let's go on with this. Now, some books would show that F sharp as being where you keep these two fingers down. I put just one finger down as long as the instrument can handle it. I think it's easier. This is also the way the flutes will do it. This is also the way the saxophones will do it. It's easier that way than... It's just less finger movements. It doesn't matter, though. You could do it either way. As long as the instrument is in pitch. Then you go to the C. What you have to understand is there is a skill in terms of going up a few notes or going down a few notes. It's like there is an interval between these notes. From that G to that C, G, A, B, C. That's not much, but it's an interval of 4 notes. So it is a kind of a skill to be able to go from one note to another note several steps above or below. And I think you have to practice that, because when you are changing notes and you're going either several steps up or several steps down, the amount of air that the instrument requires might be a little different. Not much, but enough to make a difference. And in music, a little bit of a change could mean a great deal of difference in the sound. Especially when you get into the higher notes. The interval, when you get to a higher note, sometimes gets a little bit more air, and sometimes you have to squeeze your lip a little bit harder. So let's go to this measure. G, 1, 2, 3, and 4, and there's your F sharp. And the way that I play the F sharp, and I'll go over it once again, I like to play the F sharp like this. You have, remember, B, A, G, F, E, D. The F sharp, this note. Now, some instruments play it by adding another finger. If it's in pitch, then without that other finger, and you can do the G to the F sharp. Now, I wouldn't be able to play that. That just comes out of my head. But I wouldn't be able to play it if I couldn't tongue it and if I couldn't do the intervals between the notes. For example, from the D to the B, that's like 6 notes there. That's all intervals in there. Now, I don't have the music in front of me, but that was a waltz that I wrote. So you have to get used to the intervals. So that G, that F sharp, that repeats itself throughout the music. Well, we are kind of running out of time. It is a nice little piece, and I think what I'm going to do is just write different pieces. In fact, I'm ready for a recording session now. And teach you how to play, showing you the fingerings, bringing in other instruments when I can, just to show them to you so that you can actually really be playing, not just watching what I do, but playing yourself. So if you have an instrument and you're watching the show, why not join me? And as I play, you play along with me, and you'll learn a lot that way. So I'm going to stop it here. Please join me next time, and we'll be doing more music and seeing more instruments.